Hi everyone, I'm really interested and excited in making this video, and I got the idea from a Gray 1951 media channel. That's Mike, who's a really great guy with a great channel if you want to check him out. He got the idea, I believe, from someone called the Vulgarian Troglodyte. This is apparently a movie thread that's been going around for a while, and I've only just stumbled on it now. It was hard to prepare this. There are 24 questions. It's like a quiz. You can kind of describe who you are as a movie watcher and a movie fan by your answers. And there were a lot of possibilities I could have done. I always have trouble doing these kinds of things because there are so many possible answers. You can't only pick one for some of the movies, and I'll explain that as I go along. Another problem that I had with this is I found out of the 24 questions, I found that any one of my movies picked here could qualify for more than one category. Maybe one film could have 4 or 5 different categories, whether it's cinematography, script, soundtrack, etc. It could have applied to it, just one film. And that's where trouble comes in. But I did the best I could. Before I get started here, just to explain that what I did was I kind of like I wanted to remain genuine. I wanted to give you the genuine one answer and one choice for each number. But by the same token, I wanted to try to represent a lot of different movies. So let's get going and I will explain what I mean. Okay, number one is the hardest. Favorite film. I like hundreds of films, maybe 100, maybe 200 films that could be my favorite film. How in the world do you narrow it down to one? Do you pick a title that maybe is a little bit more reputable? Or do you pick something even though it might be obscure and a little offbeat? It really is your personal favorite. I have at least 4 or 5 movies that I could use as favorite all-time film. But after really thinking about it, I decided to go for this film that I have talked about a lot from 1971. And it's not a great movie, but it is a favorite film, maybe the favorite. So I'm going to say a favorite. A favorite. Not necessarily the favorite, but it's damn up there. And that's The Omega Man, a science fiction cult film now, starring Charlton Heston as the last man alive on Earth who has to contend with surviving with all of these mutant creations, mutant victims, I should say, from a plague, created by a plague that wiped out all of mankind, maybe, except for a few lucky survivors besides Heston. This comes from Richard Matheson's classic book, I Am Legend. And of course, there have been a few versions of this. But the thing is, I saw The Omega Man in the movie theater when I was 9 years old, very impressionable age, and I never forgot it. Stuck with me forever. And I like other things about this movie, as I'll explain as I go, because this does come in at least one, maybe two more categories. Okay, best script. I like many scripts, but I decided to work this film in as best script. The Sting from 1973. It is a great film. It is one of my favorite films. It could have been up there as number one. But story-wise, and the twists and turns in here, and the way it plays out, ingenious. So I picked The Sting, 1973. For my choice for best script, although on another day it could be something else. Okay, now what's your favorite movie poster? Once again, at least a dozen posters came to mind, but I think my very favorite, if I can only pick one, and I'm going to take it out here, I have it in a plastic box. I'm not going to show you the poster, although this particular DVD cover contains the poster for the most part. It's Westworld, another 1973 film. So far, we're talking about all 1970s here, even though I love old movies too. This is a movie about an amusement park of the not too distant future, where two guests there in the center, played by James Brolin and Richard Benjamin, decide to go. It's called Westworld, which is a theme park for adults, where you can live out your fantasies, fight robot cowboys, sleep with beautiful robot women, do whatever you want to do until they go haywire. And I saw this again at the young age of 11 years old. A friend's father took us to see this, a few of us kids, and I was hooked. This is the most was the most amazing film to me. But I'm talking about the movie. I'll do that later on. But this also is contender for favorite film for me. This was right up there with Omega Man, so it's hard to be sure. But the poster, the robot there with part of his face missing, the mechanic showing in his arm and by his jaw, and the tagline, "Boy, have we got a vacation for you." That's it really is a great poster. All right, so we're going to probably return to that at some point. Okay, next up, number 4 is, I'll watch it someday. There are a couple of movies that I could say I've been meaning to watch that I have not yet seen. The first one that comes to mind is the classic Peter O'Toole, is it? Lawrence of Arabia. I've never seen Lawrence of Arabia, but I really should see it. Why haven't I seen it yet? Because it just looks like not my kind of topic, a boring topic, but it's a great film. I mean, the idea of it being, I know it's supposed to be a widescreen CinemaScope and a cinematic marvel to behold, but I just can't get behind the subject matter from what I think it's going to be. But that's a movie that I'll watch someday. Another one that I'll throw in, and sometime I'll throw in an extra runner-up here or there, is the film Chinatown. Never seen Chinatown, and I hear you got to see that. So there you go. That's number 4. And some of these I won't have any boxes to show you, or movies or anything. Okay, number 5. Films that gave you a big personal impact. Well, I just talked about Westworld. I'll flesh that one more time. This film, along with the Omega Man, are 2 of the biggest impacts I ever had. I saw them at a young age, and they stuck with me forever. So these 2 films certainly qualify. There's another film, and it's amazing that we're still mostly in the 70s, if not only in the 70s. Of course, this have to work this film in. This is another film that could have been my personal favorite also. It's up there. Jaws, of course. Also, I should mention that, back to the question of favorite movie poster, this is up there too. That's an iconic image of the shark looking up at the woman, would-be victim, swimming. And this is another personal poster favorite. It is another favorite film, a contender, and it is a big, big personal impact. 13 years old, seeing this. All the right ages to see these. All right. Now, let's go to the best long movie. Very easy for me. A lot of you are saying, I know what it is already. Now, this is one that I was going to pick as my favorite film. This could be up there, too, as my favorite film of all time. And this is Ben-Hur. William Wyler, Charlton Heston again, 1959 classic. I think if there was a question here, and there isn't, what do you think is the best movie ever made? I have not seen every movie ever made yet, or will I ever. But out of the films I saw, Ben-Hur is, I think, the best movie ever made. It is a favorite film, and I saved it because I knew the category was coming, best long movie. Even though this movie is, I don't know if it's 4 hours or thereabouts, it's kind of long. I get so into it, you never notice it. It's also a great script. It also has a great everything else. It has great cinematography. It's got a great music score. It's got great direction. Everything all in this baby. But I'm trying to make room for other films. So Ben-Hur is a biggie for me all around. Okay. Now, how about a movie that you like, but everyone else hates? All right. It seems to be this movie. This is a movie from the 80s. So we're getting into the 80s decade. 1981. It's a dark comedy called Neighbors, starring Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. It's John Belushi's last movie. And it really is not for everybody. Most people hate it. I saw it at the theater, I think New Year's Eve, 81, going into 82. And I just find it offbeat, weird, and kind of humorous in an unconventional way. Dark, it's a little grim in a way. But I have a blast with this movie, Neighbors. a film that I like, but everyone else seems to hate. All right, now let's flip that around for question number 8. A movie that I hate, but everyone else seems to like. I don't have the movie, and I was thinking about maybe doing a thing where I could flash on the posters here or the video boxes, go back and edit. I'm not going to do that. It's 1999, a horrible movie that everybody seems to like, but I hate it. And that is The Mummy from 1999, about Brendan Fraser. It is pathetic. It is overly CGI'd. It's all effects, stupid cartoony effects. Nothing is real. It all looks like animation. I can't stand that. I remember I saw it in the movie theater in 1999. Never forgot it. I remember that it was like unintentionally humorous. It's not a humorous subject. It shouldn't be laughs in it. I really hated everything about the Brendan Fraser Mummy. And I hated Imhotep, the guy that, like they do with CGI, when he roars, he opens up his mouth, and he opens his mouth like 20 feet just because they can cartoonishly stretch the mouth. Everybody seems to love the 99 Mummy. And I despise that movie with every fiber of my being. So there you go. Now, let us talk about, for number 9, an underrated film. Now, I had a few choices for underrated films. I don't know if I should mention my runners up. I just went with this one. I thought about this at the last minute. I love the Planet of the Apes, the original 5 Planet of the Apes films from the 70s. So we're back to 1973 for Battle for the Planet of the Apes, the last film in the original 5 film series. I really enjoy this movie. Most people don't like it very much. They think it's okay, but they underrate it is the point. I would say out of the 5 original Apes films, Battle is easily the least. It's the least, mostly because, no matter what anybody else says, I think, mostly because we've already done this idea now, in a way, 4 other times. The subject is getting a little overly familiar. However, this movie has character development, characters we care about. It has a lot of heart and charm, and it has like a message out there. It's the Cain and Abel story of good over evil and this and that, and it's got a good message to it, which more than a lot of movies today. So I think it has a lot going for it. It's just, unfortunately, it came along late in the series. That's my most underrated. Now, what's the most overrated film? You ready for this? I know I'm going to disappoint people, and I'm going to disappoint Mike Gray, 1951. Vertigo, Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. I think it's the most overrated film that I could think of that I've ever seen. There are other overrated classics. I think Gone with the Wind is overrated. I think The Searchers is also overrated, but not as overrated as Vertigo, because at least with Gone with the Wind, I enjoyed, let's say, the music, the grand scope of Gone with the Wind. It was a good looking film. It looked gorgeous. I couldn't enjoy Scarlett O'Hara. I hated everything about her to the very end. And she never redeemed herself to me, and I hated that about her. However, I'm talking about Vertigo, but Vertigo I just found boring all the way through, dull as hell. Now, in all fairness to Vertigo, I only saw Vertigo one time. I saw it on a VHS tape. I'd like to give Vertigo, I'm willing to give it, excuse the joke, one more spin, one more go round. And I'd like to try Vertigo one more time, under the right conditions, with the right print, the right aspect ratio, everything perfect, and see if I like it better this time. But that's my most overrated right now. Then there is a question says, why do I like this? I guess we're talking about movies that you can't understand why you like. Well, I have many movies that I like, being a horror movie fan, that I ask myself, why do I like this? It's so bad. One of them is this movie directed by the notorious Jerry Warren. This has a terrible reputation. It's called Teenage Zombies. It was made in 1959, I believe. I don't think it was released here till later, maybe the early 60s, something like that. This is a terrible movie, but I get a kick out of it somehow. And that happens. So bad it's good movies. They have scenes in here where I mean, it's so cheaply shot. I mean, it looks like it's done. It says here 35 millimeter on the back. It looks like 16 millimeter to me. Sometimes Super 8 millimeter, but it says 35 millimeter. But there were like scenes here that have no sound. They just played music over, just like stock music, vintage, stock music over silent scenes where they didn't bother even recording dialogue. And it's just badly made, badly acted, on a shoestring budget. But I like that it takes place in the 50s, and there's them trying to do that 50s vibe. There's the local malt shop where the teenagers hang out at the malt shop. They wind up going to an island where Catherine Victor is a woman who is experimenting, turning people into living dead automatons, zombies. And it's a badly made film, but I have fun with it. Another one I want to put in there, I'm doing two in this one, is a film from 1980 called Mother's Day. This is a grotesque, gory slasher film. I like a lot of those as well. In this particular film, it's about an old lady who has two deranged sons, and she likes to get them to kidnap young women and to not treat them very nicely, let's put it that way. Why do I like this film? It sets out to what it was supposed to be. It's supposed to be, a depraved, lunatic family, kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre in a way. And it makes you feel that. It makes you feel that. And one last thing about it, you feel also for the victims. The victims here are all defined, and you care about this. There are, I believe, three women in here who have past history that kind of like plays into it. They kind of at least develop the characters a bit, and that's the exception. Why you feel sorry for them in here, which is something they don't usually give you that benefit of. All right, let's try to do something here a little more respectable. Great soundtrack. Well, I already talked about a bunch of them. I mentioned already Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur is a great soundtrack, probably the best soundtrack in my opinion. But I'm going to offer a few other things up. I also mentioned the Omega Man. The Omega Man, I'll be honest with you, if you ask me what's my favorite soundtrack film of all time, meaning talking about like incidental music, background music, it is the Omega Man. This is my number one, without a doubt. It's not for everybody. It's a groovy, hip 70s soundtrack with a lot of different emotions. It has melancholy, has a very melancholia feel to it, and a lot of groovy exploitation kind of 70s feel. A lot of different vibes to it. By Ron Grainer. Ron Grainer did this, and I was so happy when this came out on CD. But I already talked about Ben-Hur, and I want to talk about John Williams' great score for Jaws. Jaws is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. But one last thing, if we're talking about not incidental music, not background music, but just like a soundtrack in the sense of like songs, like what movie utilizes good songs, that's American Graffiti. A lot of great 1950s, early 60s classics here. American Graffiti, also one of my favorite films of all time. That could have been number one. There's so many I'm squeezing in there. But yeah, great music soundtrack. Okay, let's go on here. How about there's number 13 is called, I think it says That Cinematography, like exclamation point. Great cinematography. Again, should I go back to the other films? I mentioned great cinematography in Ben-Hur, but I thought of something completely different. How about Woody Allen? Woody Allen is a favorite director of mine, and his film Manhattan is gorgeous to look at. It's funny, although I like Woody Allen's films, Manhattan is not one of my favorite films of Woody Allen's, believe it or not. I don't have this anywhere near the top, but I do love director of photography Gordon Willis, and I love what he's able to do here. The feeling of the vintage gray, black and white, because this is a movie in black and white. The landscape of the city, all the buildings in the city. It's a really beautiful looking film. Great cinematography. I chose Manhattan, and I got a chance to have something different too here. Okay, here's a topic number 14 called What's a cure for a bad day? You're having a bad day. What movie do you put on? This, you're not going to believe this. It's a 1956 movie called Indestructible Man, starring Lon Chaney Jr. I mean, here's a shot of him coming out of a manhole cover there, okay? I mean, you're talking about another silly, cheapo exploitation film from the 50s in this case. What this is Lon Chaney is a uh, convict called the Butcher who is executed and then comes back to life and seeks out his associates who betrayed him and sent him to death. You know, they turned on him and he wants revenge. Now, this movie, why would a movie like this be something for a bad day, to cure a bad day, you might ask? Well, it's because I really remember this as a kid again, and many an afternoon, Saturday afternoon, I seem to remember seeing this. I also saw it at night. They played at Chiller Theater or Creature Features at night. But I do remember watching this a lot on Saturday afternoon. And a lot of times when I'm having just a down day, I put a movie like this from my childhood on, and it just makes me feel good. There's something about the style of this movie. A lot of fans of this movie will tell you they like the style of it. It's done in a kind of dragnet feeling. It's got really nice locales here. One of them is Angel's Alley. No, Angel's Flight, excuse me. I'm sorry, Angel's Flight. It has a trolley car that goes up in L.A., I believe. It's a lot of nice visuals in here. It just takes me back. I put this movie on when I'm, if I'm not having a great day, and I'm taken right back to my youth. That's why Indestructible Man is a bad day cure. Okay, who's my favorite protagonist? Many favorite protagonists in the movie. But to get something different in here, I put Uma Thurman from Kill Bill. Now, Kill Bill Volume 1 this is, and I like Kill Bill Volume 2 even better. They're both really one film, just chopped in half. She seeks revenge on Bill, who is her boss, who left her for dead. And she takes her samurai sword and goes out to try to find and kill him. And on the way, has a lot of other people she has to settle scores with to kill them first. So, yeah, directed by Quentin Tarantino. All right. Okay, that's my favorite protagonist, Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. Okay, next up, what's your favorite trilogy? There are a lot of trilogies I probably could think of if I gave it more time, but the first thing that popped to mind is this, The Creature from the Black Lagoon. I wanted to get some Universal monsters in here, and I managed to get this one in. The Creature from the Black Lagoon was the first film. The second one, Revenge of the Creature, is different because they capture the creature in the second film and put him in a I forget what it's called, SeaWorld, or an amusement park attraction. They make an attraction out of him, a caged beast in a tank, and he escapes in the second one. And then the third one, which, believe it or not, is my favorite, personal favorite in the trilogy, The Creature Walks Among Us. They try something different by turning a sea creature into a land creature. They find he has lungs underneath all that. They give him a suit to walk around in clothing, and he becomes a land-dwelling monster. So the reason I like it as a trilogy is it comes full circle. There are each movie's different. There's three different feels to this. It's not the same movie three times. Okay, so that's that. Then we have The Biggest Letdown. I wish I had a poster for this. The biggest letdown for me as a Planet of the Apes fan was in 2001 when I saw the abomination that was Tim Burton's reboot. He ruined Planet of the Apes. It was a disgrace. It was a joke. Everybody was in it just to make a monkey out of themselves. Everything was silly and stupid and funny, and let's laugh at the funny apes. And the makeup was okay. It wasn't that great. I waited like something around approximately 30 years from doing another Planet of the Apes movie, and they gave us that crap. Tim Burton, he ought to be ashamed of himself. There's even, I've seen behind the scenes footage of him saying, okay, now cut. And they cut a scene and he bursts out into laughing. This is not a comedy, pal. Okay? I hated Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. That's the biggest letdown. Now, what's the biggest surprise? Okay, the biggest surprise was a movie from 1982 called Death Trap, starring Michael Caine and Christopher Reeve and Diane Cannon. A girlfriend of mine, I was around 20 at the time. We were taking a walk one nice dark night, and we saw the Cineplex, and we wanted to see a movie, and it was a sneak preview. It just said sneak preview, 8 o'clock. It said Michael Caine, Christopher Reeve. Didn't even tell you what the movie was. I said, you know what? Let's do it. It was like a sneak peek. We didn't even know what the hell the movie was. Went in and we got Death Trap, a movie full of twists and turns and surprises, and you never knew what was going to happen next. I highly recommend Death Trap. One other one I want to sneak in here. I went to a movie theater in recent years. I can't read the back of this. It's a small print here. This is a fairly recent movie from the recent times called Side Effects. Catherine Zeta-Jones is in here. Also, we have Jude Law, Rooney Mara, Channing Tatum. And this was a real mental jerk-around film that really surprised me, and I loved it. 4 out of 4 stars. Side Effects. That was one of my happiest surprises in recent years. Okay, how about a movie number 19 that's not the best, but you're having fun. Here's a movie. There's a lot of movies here in my collection that are lousy, but I have fun with them anyway. But number one that popped in mind was Dracula versus Frankenstein from 1971. Dracula is not the best looking Dracula. The monster's not the best looking monster, but they do meet, they fight. You have Lon Chaney Jr. and J. Carrol Naish, two veterans from the old Universal Horror Classic days, doing their last roles in this practically. Really out of shape and collecting what I call booze bucks. You know, Lon Chaney's boozing himself up every night. And this is just an inept, totally low budget affair from Al Adamson that is so much fun. It's so much fun. Okay, this is going to go over half an hour, I fear. Let's keep going here. Okay, depressing movies. The first one that came to mind was a movie called Dolores Claiborne with Kathy Bates. I really like that. Depressing but very effective movie. But, oh, I forgot something else. I'm going to have to go back for it. Okay. Also, Soylent Green, another Charlton Heston movie. I'm a Charlton Heston fan, and Soylent Green, this is about the future of New York City in 2022. Another 1973 film. The future of 2022. And 2022 played out a lot like this, actually. People in face masks and contamination and all this. Very depressing movie, very good science fiction. Charlton Heston is a cop of the future that has to find out what's happened to the food supply. Something's going on. The food supply. You know, I forgot a very important movie that I took out. Back to the subject of biggest surprise, in addition to Death Trap, was this movie called Seconds. This is one of the biggest surprises of all time. You got Rock Hudson in here playing a man, but a man who was created actually because there's an aging banker played by John Randolph, who's an older man. And he succumbs to a mysterious organization's offer of a new identity and a fresh start. And he becomes the attractive Rock Hudson, and then he kind of pays the price. Seconds by John Frankenheimer. I liked this movie so much when I saw it on DVD that I watched it twice. I watched it, then watched it twice, and then I watched it a third time with an audio commentary, 3 times in a row. I don't think I ever did that before or since. Okay, favorite active director. I guess the word there being active. Who's a director that's active still? For me, it's Quentin Tarantino. He's still active. I love Tarantino, but mostly because he grew up with old movies like me, and he knows how to like copy and paste things. You know, very little ideas are original by him. But to me, I get to put this movie in here too. His best movie is Pulp Fiction. I love Quentin Tarantino as the most active modern director. Okay, next up, favorite animated movie. The only thing I could think of was The Beatles' Yellow Submarine. I don't love it, the movie, as much as I do the songs, the music in here. But if I'm going to watch an animated movie, this is it. I'm not big on animated movies, you know. And the last one is not usually my thing, but, you know, my girlfriend, when I was with me, when I was thinking, what's a movie that's not usually my thing, but I liked it? And she said, well, I showed you a movie called Chocolat, which I think Johnny Depp was in that. Chocolat, she said, and you liked that movie very much. Well, I don't remember seeing it. I don't remember liking it. But she said that I liked Chocolat a lot. Okay, but I said I want to be able to show you a movie. So as I was looking through my collection, I saw this one, High Noon, Gary Cooper. I like this movie quite a bit, and I say this is not usually my thing because I'm not a big westerns guy. I do like westerns to a point, but I'm not a big western guy. My favorite western is probably Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And I don't know if you count Westworld. It's not really a western; it's a science fiction film. And I like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I remember liking that, and I think there are a couple of others. Oh, The Big Country. But this one I really like, High Noon. So this is not my thing usually, but this is quite good. Gary Cooper trying to, he has to face 12 noon when his enemies are going to be coming to town, and he's the sheriff, and I think he's the sheriff, is he? Yeah, and he's trying to gather a group to help him, and nobody seems to want to help him confront these fellas, bad guys. Well, that's it. It went to 31 minutes or so. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll comment and make your own video.